am weak. I am weak to my temptations. I am weak in my habits. I don't have good discipline, and I need discipline. So the other day I ran across a YouTube video of Father Ripperger, who's one of my favorite priests who have some kind of social internet presence, talking about creating a rule of life and a regimen. And this is something that I've been struggling with for a while now, where I'm just saying, I want to form all these great prayer habits. I want to form these disciplines in my work that I do, and I want to obviously start posting more on YouTube. I've been kind of falling into the trap in Romans chapter 7, verse 15. For that which I work, I understand not. For I do not that good which I will, but the evil which I hate that I do. If then I do that which I will not, I consent to the law that is good. Basically, in that passage, the Douay-Rheims Bible has a great explanation of it. They say, the apostle here describes the disorderly motions of passion and concupiscence. Concupiscence is the desire to sin, which oftentimes in us get the start of reason, and by means of which even good men suffer in the inferior appetite what their will abhors, and are much hindered in the accomplishment of the desires of their spirit and mind. So basically, St. Paul is talking about, I do what I don't want to do. I am weak. I am weak to my temptations. I am weak in my habits. I don't have good discipline, and I need discipline. There are certain things that I've had to do. I have to do the laundry eventually. I have to scoop the litter box. I have to clean the kitchen and do the dishes. And some of those things I actually enjoy doing, like cleaning the dishes, so it makes it a little easier to be disciplined about them. But I've really struggled recently with establishing a prayer routine, a solid prayer routine that I do every day, so that I'm in the Bible every day and that I am praying to God and, formulating a relationship with Him. It's important to have that connection to God so you don't feel alone when you don't have that Catholic community. It's so important. So establishing a regimen and routine is super, super duper important. So I really needed to craft a regimen around my prayer life instead of crafting my prayer life, trying to fit it in to random places. Why even form a habit or a routine of life? Father Ripperger points out that when we form good habits of prayer and meditation and discipline, the moral life, the spiritual life gets way easier. When we have that discipline to pray every day, when we're making that time for God, we're not only making time for Him, but we are giving Him our time. We're sacrificing our time. What maybe we'd rather be watching Netflix or YouTube, which is what I do constantly. Instead of doing that, you have the discipline and the virtue to say, no, I'm going to go pick up the Bible and read a little bit of the gospel. The first step of creating a personalized rule of life is to consider any vows that you've taken. Obviously, if you are a religious person, you have undertaken the vows of, poverty, or depending on your order, I guess, poverty, chastity. If you're a layperson like me, you can also officially take on different vows. A lot of people, it's really popular right now to do the consecration to the Blessed Virgin Mary, which is an official vow. So that's the first consideration whenever you're crafting your rule of life. And you need to take all these things I'm about to talk about into consideration in your rule of life so that you can put them into your daily regimen and you can prioritize those things. Obviously, if you've taken a vow of chastity, you need to make sure that you're making time for a relationship with God so you're not feeling alone in your relationship of chastity. Humility, you need to take time to humble yourself in front of maybe the Blessed Sacrament every day or every week or something like that. So whenever you craft your rule of life, it directly feeds into your daily or weekly routines. Your second consideration for creating your rule of life is to think about what mortal sins you commit most often. And we're trying to get to the point where we don't commit any sin, obviously, but focusing on those mortal sins, those sins that keep you coming back and back again to confession and rooting those out is a really great thing that a rule of life and a routine can help you do. So for example, I really struggle with the sin of pride, and there are more specifics in the sins that I commit that are prideful. But in order to combat that, in my rule of life, I have decided to say the litany of humility every single day. It's beautiful. It really brings me a lot of peace, and might bring you some peace as well in this world that's constantly encouraging us to be all about me, blah, 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 and selfish and not humble at all. So the third step in crafting a rule of life is to actually go ahead and write down your regimen. And it took me a couple of rough drafts to kind of figure out what I wanted to do and how I was going to incorporate, I don't have any vows currently, but to incorporate, I guess, my marriage vows, as well as my goal to instill humility in myself, and then how to put that into a daily regimen, and then including my work hours, as well as the things that I want to do to better myself, to eat healthier, making better dinners, as well as the most important thing, which is when am I going to sit down and pray, in the morning, in the evening, and am I going to say the Angelus at noon? There's a lot of stuff you can do. So I just wrote all of that out and put it into a regimen. And the reason you're doing this, again, is because of this letter to the Romans, St. Paul saying, I don't do what I want to do. I have really great intentions when it comes to praying. I have really great intentions when it comes to working, but I just don't do it unless I have to stare at I have my rule of life right there. And every morning when I walk into this room, I look at my rule of life and I say, did I do my morning prayer? Am I ready to make lunch and eat a healthy lunch? Do I have the things I need to do that? How did it go yesterday on my routine? Am I upholding my disciplines? Am I upholding the things that I know are so important to my spiritual life, that are so much more important than the things of this world? Am I doing that? So that's why you're going to write down the routine, and here's some more ideas about what you can put in your routine. I find one thing that's really easy to add to your daily routine is saying an Angelus at noon. I just set a reminder on my phone. For a lot of this, I set a reminder on my phone. It just says Angelus. It goes off at noon, and I stand up and I pray the Angelus, and it's really beautiful to think that I'm praying it in communion with so many others in the body of Christ at noon. Father Ripperger says that there's a bare minimum for Catholics that he recommends to do. I tend to follow his advice when it comes to spiritual warfare. So he recommends doing a morning offering, to start your day dedicated to God, thinking about God, remembering God. Throughout the day, obviously you need to fulfill the duties of your station in life, whether you're a priest, a religious person, a husband and wife, a single person, whatever your duties in life are, son or daughter, you need to make sure that you're taking care of your obligations. You can't just create yourself a routine that revolves around yourself and pushes out everyone else who you're obligated to help and to do things for, be charitable to. And part of your state in life, obviously as a Catholic, is going to Mass every Sunday, going on the holy days of obligation, receiving confession once a year, receiving the Eucharist at least once a year, and those kinds of obligations that we have as Catholics, as well as, the things in your life that you need to be doing. Like, for example, I cook dinner for my husband. I tried to cook dinner for my husband because he goes to work most of the day. When he comes home, he doesn't really want to cook dinner. That's my station in life right now, and that's what I need to be disciplined in doing. On the more prayerful side of things, again, Father Ripperger recommends we all say a rosary daily, which is something I used to be very good at. I really love the 54-day rosary. I might do a video on that in the future. Father Ripperger recommends 15 minutes of just straight meditation on God. What I like to do is ask him a question if there's something that's really going on in my life. For the first 5 minutes, I'll set a timer and talk to God. And then for the next 10 minutes, I will sit up straight and not close my eyes, because if I close my eyes, I will fall asleep. Sit up straight and just, kind of try to blank out my mind and just hear what God has to say to me. And I've never really heard God's voice. I've felt his presence a couple of times, which has been beautiful. But at the end of the day, God is going to speak into your heart, and you need to give him opportunity to do so. If we're constantly just going, we're never gonna hear him. We're never gonna hear what he wants us to do. So a lot of times I ask him, God, what is your will for me today? What do you want me to do today? What is your will in my life? And those are some pretty big questions to just sit for 10 minutes and wait for him to answer. And it's not like I get disappointed if I don't have some kind of big, God voice in my head coming down and telling me exactly what I need to do with my life. I don't, because at the end of the day, I know that God is here and he heard my questions and heard my prayers, and he's going to answer them for me in some way. Finally, Father recommends you do 5 minutes of spiritual reading, which could be reading from the saints, reading the Bible, something really edifying, something Catholic, something spiritual. And then finally, an examination of conscience before bed. I find that doing an examination of conscience before bed, it's not a guilt thing. I don't sit there and like, I'm sorry for all this, but think about what you have done to hurt God and to hurt yourself, what selfish things I've done, what prideful things I've done, and to just take stock of all of that. It really helps me when I go to confession to remember those sins that I've committed so I can make a good and whole confession. So one of the coolest things I think in Father Ripperger's talk that he gave was talking about how we oftentimes just forget about Jesus during the day. And it's almost like we're functioning atheists where we go about our day, do our work, do our duties in life, but we don't think about God. Like there are some days where I go without praying to God. I don't. And I've had to counteract that by I have pictures of Jesus everywhere. I have a beautiful Jesus, I trust in you little prayer card here with the prayers on the back of the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, and I try to pray that if I can. You know, there are lots of things that I put in my house to try to remind me of God, because we can't forget about Jesus. We can't forget about what he's done for us. We can't forget about what our real purpose is here on life. And if we get so wrapped up, I get so wrapped up in the things I'm doing on earth that are, pointless, and instead of getting enthralled with the goodness that is Jesus, as well as in the work that he wants me to do instead of the work that I want to do. And Jesus asks us to remember him. I mean, it's actually in the Mass itself, in the consecration, in the words of consecration, from Luke chapter 22, verse 19. And taking bread, he gave thanks and brake, and gave to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this for a commemoration of me." A commemoration, the Mass, the holy sacrifice of the Mass is the coming again of that sacrifice. The whole reason for the altar is because there is a sacrifice being made present for us. Again, the same sacrifice that Jesus died on the cross is happening. It's made present again. So basically the word for that is anamnesis, and somebody smarter than me explained this, so I'm just going to read what they said. Anamnesis, in which the Church, fulfilling the command that she received from Christ the Lord through the apostles, keeps the memorial of Christ, recalling especially his blessed passion, glorious resurrection, and ascension into heaven. So remembering things is basically, it's just a part of our Catholicism, it's a part of our Catholic life. So creating this routine of discipline and remembering God through prayer and through meditation is super important. I mean, we're supposed to be remembering him in the Eucharist. We're supposed to be remembering him through prayer. We're supposed to be remembering our death, memento mori. There's this whole theme of remembrance throughout all of Catholicism, which is really fascinating to me. And I think it's really profound that in establishing a routine, we're not only helping ourselves by giving us, a structure in life and helping us not to just be lazy potatoes like me, and like I like to do, and we're also doing something more for our souls and really giving ourselves the chance to remember the peace which we all should have and the joy which we should have as Catholics, as Christians. So that's basically it on how to create your rule of life and your regimen, and why you would even want to do that, and how the disciplines and forming habits can help you really in your moral life and your spiritual life. So I figured I would just share with you my rule of life here on my little piece of paper. And if you have any questions about why I'm doing what I'm doing, or how you can create a rule of life, feel free to leave it in the comments below. And if you like this video, please give it a like. And then also, if you want to contact me, I'm on Instagram, and you can ask me about rule of life or Catholicism or anything there as well. So at 8 a.m., which has kind of moved to 9 a.m. for various reasons, I do morning prayer, and it can be as simple as, I give my life to you this day, or I have a prayer book that sometimes I'll do the morning prayer in. Usually I try to get an Our Father and a Hail Mary in whenever I'm praying. And then about an hour after that, in that time I get dressed, and then I make breakfast and kind of drink some water and wake up. And then I get to work and I do some lighter work. I'm a virtual assistant as well as trying to start this YouTube channel, so that's kind of my work. I'm a stay-at-home wife, so part of my work and my duties in life are cleaning. If the kitchen is dirty, usually I'll try to do the dishes, clean up the counters, stuff like that, do a little bit of pickup. At 10 a.m. I write. I really enjoy writing, and I have my Catholic blog, which is, sisters to this YouTube channel, so check that out if you prefer reading things. And 10 to 11, continue doing that kind of stuff. And then at the Angelus, I stop what I'm doing at noon. I stop what I'm doing and say an Angelus. and then I go eat lunch. And I find it's really hard for me to stop what I'm doing at noon, but I stop. I just have to stop, and I take a break, because sometimes you just need a brain break, and there's nothing better than praying to God and praying the Angelus and feeling so united to Mary, and then just giving yourself some peace and a time to relax. So I have lunch, and then at 1, I either go on errands, or I do a little bit of singing practice, or I can just get back to work depending on what I have to do. A lot of times I'll go to the grocery store, go pick something up if I need to, and then come right back. And then work for whatever time in the afternoon I have. At 3 p.m., I've been saying the Litany of Humility, which is just, like I mentioned earlier, it's a really beautiful litany. I highly recommend saying it. And that's just, for me, trying to build up the virtue of humility. And then I kind of keep working. And then at 6 p.m., 6 p.m. is my work cutoff time, which sometimes I work past that, but I'm really working for it to be the cutoff time. So at 6 p.m., I'm to read the Bible for about 30 minutes. And then I've also been trying to pray a rosary around that time. It's a little spotty, but we're getting there. And then at 7 p.m., I have it scheduled to make dinner and just chill out. I try not to do any work, try not to answer any emails, just make that my time. Because once Caleb is home, I try to make that our time together. It depends, if he's doing stuff, then maybe I'll do a little bit of work, whatever. But I need to make dinner. That's a big goal of mine, is to make healthier dinners. And then usually we'll watch some Netflix and unwind a little bit, which is okay, because throughout the earlier in the day, I've done a lot of prayer, and I've done, my meditation times and my litanies, and I've worked, so it's okay to give myself a little bit of time to relax. And then at about 11 p.m., I'll take a shower, do an examination of conscience, and then my goal every night is for my head to be hitting my pillow at around 11:30 to 12:30. That's my routine that coincides with my rule of life, and I'm glad to have shared that with you, and I hope that this inspires you to create your own rule of life. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!